The Joe Rogan Experience.
Let's take it back to the day that this happened. You're 22. You're logging. You're in the woods. Tell me what happened.
It's just, you know, when you're done working hard physical labor, everybody's kind of jacked up, and there was a whole lot of chatter in the car. We're just talking away, you know. It's starting to get dark. We just loaded up our equipment. We're headed out, and I looked up ahead, and I saw this kind of glow coming through the trees. First, I thought, no big deal, you know. It was deer hunting season. Thought maybe there was some hunters camped up on the hill up there. Maybe light shining through a tent. It was still something really strange, kind of caught my eye. And one by one, the other guys in the crew started looking, but nobody said, "Oh my God, what's that?" or anything like that. It was just kind of an idle curiosity at first. But when we burst into the clearing where we could see the source of this glow, it was just, whoa, you know. I mean, it was just mind-blowing instantly. I inexplicably got out of the truck and ran toward this thing, but I thought it was just going to take off, be gone in a flash. And
so, when you say in the clearing, are you driving on a dirt road?
Yeah, it's a dirt road. Trees are real thick. This was a part of the contract we hadn't cut in yet, so trees were a lot thicker there, except for this clearing, and. We weren't the only ones that saw it. We found out later. Sheriff had on file people who were in the area that saw it, you know, hunters and fishermen over there at Black Canyon Lake. And the movement that they described was what the crew described when it left. And of course, I didn't see that, but
what did they describe?
They described this glow rising up and streaking off, I believe they said, toward the northeast. And there were some people that probably don't want to be public about it, but there was one guy who was just deer hunting, and he worked in military intelligence, and he stuck by what he and his wife saw. They were both together. And another guy that was at Black Canyon Lake, I won't mention any of those guys' names unless they chose to, but found out later that there was more official investigation that nobody talked about at the time. Immediately, though, this was all nonsense, and these guys murdered him. And even my oldest brother, he didn't believe me. He thought they had killed me. What we were doing with the brush that we cut was piling it up. There were piles that were in the clearing so that the Forest Service could burn these piles, you know, when the conditions were right, where it wouldn't spread, you know. Wet conditions otherwise, but burn up this excess material to reduce the fire danger in the woods. And my oldest brother was tearing those piles apart. He was certain that my body was under there. And there were some pretty testy confrontations between him and my brother. And I think even my other brother, Dwayne, he initially took that approach, but he quickly became sure that they were telling the truth.
Now, what do you remember when you're going through your mind and you're trying? I mean, this is a story you've told so many times, and this is a story that's been turned into a film, which it's got to be very surreal. But when you look into your memories and you try to go back to that day.
Well, I don't. It's something I try to block out, but it's unforgettable. And there's
what you were seeing when you ran into the clearing?
Well, the whole clearing was lit up with this weird glow. It's really hard to for any artist or movie to try to duplicate the strange glow there was there. Made everything look really really pretty eerie, you know, and
Did it have color to it?
it was kind of a golden color, but with a kind of a softness to it that it wasn't like beams of light shooting out. It was just this haze of light.
And did it seem to come from a specific part of the craft, or?
Most surface seemed to be glowing. There were darker areas that didn't give off light, but it was the parts that weren't glowing. It wasn't so hard, bright that you couldn't look at it, but it had a metallic look to it.
So what did the craft itself look like?
It was classic disc-shaped craft. The years later, there was a report. I can never remember names, but this guy was saying that he worked at Area 51, and they had something in there. He worked with the Tester Model Corporation to create a model of what he was describing. And that's actually the closest of any of the other descriptions I've seen. But I don't think these things have just one type of craft. I think there's many, many different shapes.
What makes you think that?
Well, personal experience. I try not to emphasize these other incidents, but I've seen the glowing sphere. I've seen the giant black triangle. Other craft that were a ball of light that you couldn't penetrate the light with your eyes. But
Now, this after this experience.
I think the reason my brother Dwayne was persuaded more quickly than my brother Don was that he saw a craft in those woods. That's probably 10 miles from there while deer hunting. And it was kind of tic-tac shaped, and that's something that's been observed by, in military reports recently.
Yeah. So you see this thing, this disc-shaped craft,
Yeah.
and then what happens?
It started to move and started to get louder.
Louder.
Yeah. It was the guys in the truck heard it too. There was a low thunderous kind of a rumble that you actually sort of felt more than heard. And then there were other high-pitched frequencies. I was talking to a group of students from technical college, and they were really interested in what the sound was like to try to, compare that with theories that they had concerning what might be their propulsion. But the increase in volume, it suddenly got louder as it started to move. And, at the same time, the guys in the truck were screaming, "Get away from there, let's go, get back in the truck, let's go." And which would have been the smart thing to do. But as soon as it moved, it startled me, and I just ducked for cover. There was a log there. I got down behind this log, and they were screaming, "Let's go, let's go, let's go." And I didn't need to be told. I was just going to, stand up and run away. But see, when I jumped for cover, I went down and forward to reach where the log would hide me. And that brought me closer to it. So when I stood up, at that point, that was the closest I was to the object.
How close?
It was still like 8 or 10 feet away, from the surface of it. But that was when the energy discharge happened. I've worked on a number of theories about what might have happened. At the time, some of the other guys on the truck were thinking, immediately Steve said, it got him. Like, if you shot a deer, you got it,
Right.
And so it might not have been, as we assumed at first, that it was some kind of stun gun or something, but maybe just closing that gap allowed this energy to leap to ground through me. And
Like staticity or something.
yeah, the thing that really weighs heavy in that direction is that when I found years later that they have satellites or something that record the number of lightning strikes, and that area has the highest frequency of lightning strikes of any place in the continental United States, except for the Everglades. The Everglades has a bit more, but that's over water. So that adds to another theory. What were they doing there?
So that area that has a high level of lightning strikes, do you think it makes sense that they're observing that, or is that why they were there? Do you have any thoughts about that?
Up until a few years ago, you walk down the rim road, and if you see a tree that's been hit by lightning, you can always see it. It's a strip of bark that's just blasted out of there, and it's all bare, and it can actually still survive the lightning strike, but it turns the sap to steam instantly, and it just explodes out the side of the tree, blows the bark off. But I was at a conference where this lady was. I say, "What's this?" And she says, "That's fulgurite." I said, "What's that?" And she says, "That's when lightning strikes the earth. You've got millions of volts, millions of degrees that form these crystals that aren't formed geologically." So I kind of leaned towards this theory that perhaps they were looking for fulgurite, for a very unique kind of crystal that would be formed by that kind of blast of energy. I'd never heard of fulgurite before.
Can you pull up that, Jamie? I'd like to see what that looks like. I know tritonite is something that happens when they call it nuclear glass. It happens when there is either a nuclear explosion or when asteroid impacts hit the Earth. Right there.
Well, these crystals are supposed to have very special properties for people who are into crystal. But
what does that say there, Jamie? This is what happens. That's what. Wow, that's wild.
It's beautiful, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. That's pretty wild. So it might be that they were looking for that. Well, who knows? It may be something that they use for energy. What is that? That's really when lightning struck Santa created that thing? That's wild. That is wild. Look at that. It looks like a tree coming out of the sand.
I'm guessing that was wet sand.
Yeah.
But
yeah, well, it's right next to the beach. It must be wet. That is crazy. That's really wild, man. Catch new episodes of The Joe Experience for free only on Spotify. Watch back catalog JRE videos on Spotify, including clips. Easily, seamlessly switch between video and audio experience. On Spotify, you can listen to the JRE in the background while using other apps and can download episodes to save on data cost, all for free. Spotify is absolutely free. You don't have to have a premium account to watch new JRE episodes. You just need to search for the JRE on your Spotify app. Go to Spotify now to get this full episode of The Joe Rogan Experience.
The Joe Rogan Experience.
A big step forward, a big improvement was the hypnosis. The whole process of hypnosis is a sort of a deep relaxation at the same time you're confronting these memories. That helped a lot.
The problem that people with some hypnosis sessions is that you can be led into false memories.
True. And I think this happened. I think, having been at many, many UFO gatherings, I think some people are mistaken about their experience. I believe, and this is just my personal opinion, understand, I try to stick strictly to what I experienced, and then my own musings, my own philosophy that I've had 45 years to develop. I think that probably some people do have extremely unique dreams that seem so real that the actual physical event didn't happen. And I've tried to argue with people about how evil their intentions would be, you know. And I'm saying, you know, the decades that we've been having these sightings, if they, with that sort of technology, if they wanted to replace us on this planet, we'd never know what hit us.
No.
I don't think that, and actually I think they're so advanced that if there's sightings, it's not an accident. It's not like they slap their forehead, humans spotted me again, I have to be more careful next time, you know. No, I think they'd be perfectly capable of being undetected. We never have any. I think these little glimpses are probably a generalized customization that we might need as a species, but maybe on the other hand, there's some more individual interest. And I used to be really skeptical. I'd hear stories where people were describing them as having some particular interest in them, and I'd tell them, you know, that'd be like them walking by an anthill and saying, oh, I think I'll have a conversation with that little ant right there.
Right.
Humans are a bunch of savages, but at the same time, I believe they probably do have. If you saw one when you were 8 years old and you see one as an adult, they know it's you. Their ability to process data and retain it and store it is beyond anything we can imagine. I think we're on the verge of that kind of paradigm shift with something I would call the computer-brain interface. The minute we can do that kind of thing, it's kind of scary about the possibilities. But I've been at conferences where people talk about these beings as being predatory or evil. One guy was trying to tell me that they capture people, dissect them, and dump their body. And I said, oh, okay, name one. And he goes, well, so-and-so. And I go, no, not the guy who puts this theory out there. Who's the victim who was found cut to pieces? And then I said, so name one. And he gives me another name. It was still somebody who's promoting this theory. And he just didn't get it. I said, what's the name of the victim? And he couldn't come up with one. So I'm skeptical about that.
Well, anytime a fantastic subject, whether it's UFOs or psychics or Bigfoot, or you find these people that just want to believe, you know, and it's very disheartening. There's something about that. Like, it's hard to separate truth from fantasy with a lot of these folks. And I think there's
a lot of fantasy and delusion going on.
Yeah.
And I have encountered other people that I do believe had legitimate experiences, but I wouldn't consider them in the majority, and that's an unpopular view. But
no, I have that view. You know, I'm not completely skeptical, but I'm skeptical enough. I also know that it's an aspect of human nature where people want to tell stories that make them unique without actually having to have done anything special in their life. They want to be special, and some people tell stories that make them out to be very special because they've been chosen to have this unique experience with an extraterrestrial. You haven't, they have, and it makes them, it satisfies these delusions of grandeur that some
and I
have.
certainly try to downplay that aspect of it. I say I really favor the idea that this was an accident. It was precipitated by my foolish move of getting too close. I believe they probably just took me aboard in order to correct damage that they were a part of that was even unexpected for them.
So did you have full damage that you could see?
No, but one thing that leads me to think that all of the repairs they might have done weren't complete was my initial EEG brainwave scan. And this was done at the same hospital where Muhammad Ali did his. And it was very, what do you call it?
Irregular?
What's the term? double blind. Dr. Kandel did not tell the technician what I was in there for. Mm-hmm. And so he wasn't looking for some particular thing that would support or deny my experience. So he just described an unusual pattern in the brain that in another brainwave scan years later wasn't there anymore. So
what was this?
Trying to think of the exact wording. It was a bisynchronous wave alternating from front to back. I remember those words, but I have the report from both EEGs. So I've been interested in finding someone who might have been hit by lightning, or some electrician that raised up against a wire and had a huge amount of energy come through the brain, and see if an EEG compares to this weird pattern that they're describing there. But there's a lot of speculation open, and I, of course, have done trying to figure out what happened there. And there's some amazing things that sometimes, I try to stick to the stuff I can document, stuff that where I have other witnesses, and that documentable. That's what I go for. And I have this information concerning the EEG, documents of it.
Catch new episodes of the Joe Experience for free, only on Spotify. Watch back catalog JRE videos on Spotify, including clips. Easily, seamlessly switch between video and audio experience. On Spotify, you can listen to the JRE in the background while using other apps, and can download episodes to save on data cost, all for free. Spotify is absolutely free. You don't have to have a premium account to watch new JRE episodes. You just need to search for the JRE on your Spotify app. Go to Spotify now to get this full episode of the Joe Rogan Experience.
The Joe Rogan Experience.
You and I have some shared interests, clearly, in the world of UFOs, but I want to talk. Most people know of you because of Bigelow Aerospace. They know that you're this billionaire investor and you're a very successful businessman, but you have a deep fascination with UFOs.
Yeah, sure do.
How did it get started?
Back when when I was about 3 years old, which would be about 1947, and actually of May of that year, my grandparents had a very close encounter that was dramatic. And they were taking an evening drive in the late afternoon up into the mountains and coming on back down to Las Vegas. And they saw what appeared to be at first an airplane on fire. And the object became closer and closer to them, and they pulled off to the side of the road. And at one point, then it filled up the windshield, and they thought they were going to die. And at the last second, it shot off and disappeared. And I learned of this story when I was probably 10 years old, and because I was 3 at the time, and my mother had told me this story. So I approached my grandfather, and he wouldn't talk about it. Now, after all these years, like 7 years have gone by, because I was intrigued with it. And so I went to my grandmother, and she only would say a few words, but she wouldn't talk. So I got the story from my mom, and my grandfather had to sit on the side of the road there in the car for a while to recompose himself, and because they thought they were going to die. And then he finally was able to drive on back to Las Vegas. So that was the beginning for me.
Did he describe what you said? It looked like a plane on fire, but like, what was the shape of it as it got closer?
I don't recall any kind of shape that my mother described. I don't recall that.
But it wasn't a plane. They knew it was something.
That's right. That's right.
Crazy.
So in the family, the family had an event. And I lived right next door to my grandparents. And the family had an event that kind of started things at that date for me, other personal things came later. But for the family, that was a big deal.
So you said 47?
Well,
And 47 was the time of the Roswell crash. 47 was a time there was a lot of UFO activity being observed worldwide. And the speculation is that this had to do with the nuclear bombs that were dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki and all the tests that the United States had done and Russia had done, and that there was a lot of interest in obviously in that. Well, actually, Russia hadn't dropped any bombs by that time, right?
right.
It was after that, but that there was interest in our species by extraterrestrials because they let these crazy assholes are detonating nukes. Like let's go take a look at them.
Right. Well, you had so-called Foo Fighters during the war. These lights that were following bombers, and the tail gunners were the ones that saw them most often, of course, and that happened through the war, and then of course Roswell. But before that was Ken Arnold, right? In about June-ish, and then in July 8th was Roswell.
And there's an uptick though from the Trinity experiments, right?
I think I gather my feeling simply is that without any kind of other evidence or proof that was a huge stimulus. Yeah.
So this was around that time, and you had heard about this as a part of, family discussions.
Right.
And so that sort of ignited the fire initially.
Yeah. I started asking my friends, as I say, when I was about 10, have you any reports in your family of anything? And by golly, a couple of my close friends told me things that they had never told me before. So, that wasn't necessarily an exclusive event, is what I'm saying. Other people in Las Vegas had seen things at close proximity as well.
Your relationship to this is obviously something that you've carried for so long. It's been an obsession of yours for so long.
Yeah, yeah.
It started with this, but what personal experiences, if any, have you had?
Well, when I was probably 7 or 8, I used to have what I chalked up all my life to just being silly dreams. And I had maybe 5 or 6 of these dreams, and I could never make sense of them. And I would be laying in bed on my side, and typical dream, always the same. There would be 3 short somethings in a kind of monk robe, and so I couldn't see any face, couldn't see any appendages, and these 3 whatevers were standing there, and they were not too far from my eye level as far as the heights and so forth.
So these,
yeah, and so there was nothing I was an avid comic book reader, but there was nothing in the whole genre of comic books that related to that, or movies. And we didn't have television in Las Vegas till 53 or 54, and even after that it was terrible broadcasting, at first. But so it made no sense to me. And so over my lifetime, I never mentioned it to anybody, including my wife. It's funny how you keep things secret, and just kind of for no good reason. Maybe I would be embarrassed to talk about it. But I finally thought, well, maybe it was just dreams. Maybe it was something else. And so that was the first event personally that I had at that time in the subject.
when did you start to connect the idea of these tiny people or human-like things with extraterrestrials?
Was later when I began to start my process as a researcher and as a student in the subject, and began to talk with people who made it their business to be experts in abductions. And the more I got into the field and sat writing out questions for the researcher, for the therapist who would be asking the questions, and I'd be sitting there watching the process. And just over time, I thought, well, maybe there was something more to it, but I'm better off not knowing anything, so I'll just block it off and forget about it.
Yeah, I talked last night about John Mack a little bit, the Harvard.
A great guy.
did a lot of these sort of hypnotic regression sessions with people where they describe very similar scenarios.
Well, yeah, multiple different situations. The abduction phenomena was very proliferate in the population, it seemed like. Even we did a survey called the Roper Poll, and we repeated it 3 times so that the margin of error was really reduced to like 1.5%. And abduction researchers came up with the 10 questions, and so we distributed that, and the conclusion was a fairly relatively sizable percentage of the population had some kind of experiences, according to them, according to the researchers, and according to the poll. I am not qualified to speak to the accuracy of whether the questions were that relevant to the conclusions or not, but that's what they said. And and I had in my own research found people that I put them through a regression, not personally, but I found a hypnotherapist that could do that, and I found a number of people just here, there, scattered around, maybe somebody in my own staff, and they would come up with these stories and these events.
One of the criticisms of John Mack and hypnotic regression in general is that the idea that you can put a memory into someone's head, that you could suggest things and you could create false memories. And this was something that I've read in the criticism of his work, that this style of hypnotic regression and bringing up these very specific scenarios to a bunch of different people, you can sort of help create, especially in people that are easily influenced or people that are open to suggestion, you could put these false memories in their head. And so, especially when you're dealing with something as fantastic as a
right.
UFO or
right.
alien abduction or visitation or something like
right.
that.
Oh, that's definitely possible. There's also something called screen memory, but dealing with the power of suggestion. That's absolutely true. But my experience was with different hypnotherapists, they went out of their way. In fact, maybe if they did make a suggestion, it was just the opposite. They might say, okay, you're on board this craft. Where's the lighting coming from? Is it coming from the corner or of the room that you're in? Well, there were no corners, and they'd be corrected right away by the person being hypnotized. And so they went just the opposite direction on purpose to make suggestions to maybe coax the person to come that direction, and they wouldn't do it. The person wouldn't do it. Now, screen memory is different. Supposedly, if somebody has a very close encounter with supposedly somebody that's ET, you leave that the memory turns out to be entirely different, and that's put into you consciously, and you recall something entirely different than what actually happened. Maybe you saw two deer on the road, or
right.
something of that sort, or maybe there were owls or whatever. So that's what's purported to be.
Catch new episodes of the Joe Experience for free, only on Spotify. Watch back catalog JRE videos on Spotify, including clips. Easily, seamlessly switch between video and audio experience. On Spotify, you can listen to the JRE in the background while using other apps and can download episodes to save on data costs, all for free. Spotify is absolutely free. You don't have to have a premium account to watch new JRE episodes. You just need to search for the JRE on your Spotify app. Go to Spotify now to get this full episode of the Joe Rogan Experience.
The Joe Rogan Experience.
The stuff is landing or crashing around the world, and unexpected countries have had this happen, and that's why I picked that, because I thought that was a interesting case. And then, of course, Pope Pius XII and the Vatican were involved, back-channeling it through the OSS, which became the CIA later, to FDR, and that's how the U.S. knew something weird happened in Italy right before World War II. But
so this 33 was the first, documented?
that is the earliest one I can talk about, yeah.
There's something that predates that?
You could infer that.
Infer that.
Yeah.
So this 33 one you said was in Italy?
Yeah, magenta. So it's I'm bad at geography. I think that's like a Lombardy region. It's like northwest Italy.
And what's the story behind it?
So basically, it looked like it crashed, right? The original shape most likely was like a lenticular disc-like craft, with like two dinner plates.
What
right?
does lent to mean?
So like two dinner plates, smushed together, right? The hump, and there's like a like a bubble on top.
The classic,
like
saucer,
like that,
like that. Okay.
But it looks like when it hit, the edges broke off, so it became this like bell or acorn shaped thing. And there was nothing in it. It was like just an artifact. There was no biological remnants, if you will. So it's so funny because the Italians were so confused. They actually called up the Germans and they were like, is this one of your Wunderwaffe? Like, what the hell just crashed in northern Italy? Mussolini. And this is all publicly available information because some Italian researchers found all these original documents that some people were sitting on for years in Italy. They put a gag order on the press, etc. And Mussolini asked the Germans to come down. And of course, the Germans came down and they were like, that is not ours, but let's look at it together. So that's kind of perhaps a tertiary reason the kind of Axis powers got together. I'm not saying that's like the reason, but I think the Italians and the Germans were so intrigued with what they found from like an artifact perspective. There was at least some scientific and military collaboration during the war, the details of which I'm not sure of, but I know people that know that specific event that are currently still intel officers within this program in detail. But
So were there witnesses to the crash or some sort of an understanding that something had crash landed and then they discovered it?
Yeah, I forget the precise discovery. I don't know if it was like local police officers or local farmers found it in the field, something like that. I don't want to misspeak. I assume some of the Italian researchers might have some fact witnesses that can orally say, "Oh yeah, my great grandfather found it" or something like that. But I don't remember.
And what was the style of this vehicle?
It was probably like 20 feet by 10 feet, something like that. Not super huge, but kind of big.
Do they think this was a drone? Do they think that this was occupied?
There was nothing in it. So if it was piloted, if you will, by some sentience, I mean, your guess is as good as mine. So.
So what happened to that vehicle?
So we knew where it was being stored at a particular location after the crash, and then the military came in and we grabbed it towards the end of the war, 1944, 1945, because, like I said, Pope Pius XII already kind of let FDR know.
Why the involved? Because in Italy?
Well, interestingly enough, there's like a whole history of human intelligence prior to World War II and old money, the Vatican, the Italian mob, kind of the old country boys did a lot of informal intelligence collection for the U.S. And there's probably some books you can read on it, but it's really interesting. Human intelligence collection wasn't really formalized until the Office of Strategic Services, the OSS, which became the CIA in 1947. You had Paul Mellon and all these other affluent guys of all these old money families that basically created the CIA. So that's probably the reason why.
So this thing that was recovered, this was the first documented one that the United States had access to?
I can't get into the first or not, but it was an early one. Yeah.
So it's almost 100 years ago.
Yes.
And so they take this thing and then they bring it where?
Yeah, I can't get into those.
Can't get into that.
No.
Okay. They bring it somewhere in the United States. And was the attempt to try to back engineer this thing? Was the attempt to try to understand what it was?
I mean, first of it, obviously, it's understanding the situation, right? What do we have our hands on? And like I've said in some other videos and stuff, that we took the Manhattan Project secrecy and overlaid it on this issue because that secrecy worked well for atomic bomb developments and whatnots. And certainly this whole program in a nutshell, if I were to like summarize the 90 plus years of history. It is a reverse engineering program to garner some kind of insight. And of course, not a lot of the things that we've learned from it are like directly, ripped off the technology we found, but it has inspired other innovations that made its way into other U.S. classified programs over the year for national defense reasons, and it's a myriad of different things. So
The UFO folklore is that this is where fiber optics were discovered first.
yeah, going to break the seal on anything we've discovered or anything like that. And yeah, it's a place I can't go to.
How limited
yeah.
are you
Yeah.
in what you can discuss and what you can't discuss, and why?
Yeah.
Why do they let you discuss any of this?
Yeah, so anything sensitive that I want to say as it relates to like U.S. government activity, whether it be intelligence stuff, military stuff, etc., I have to submit it through what they call DOPSR, DoD Office of Pre-Publication and Security Review. That is something anybody who's been an intel officer, anybody with like a clearance, has to submit that kind of stuff. Now, obviously, if you're writing a book about gardening, you don't have to. But if you're going to talk about anything military and intelligence related, you have to submit. So it's kind of a catch-22 for this office, right? They're only looking at it from a security perspective. They're not vouching for it or anything like that. And that's like any author, right? They could write a book about Navy SEALs and they're not vouching for the story. They're vouching that you didn't say any nasty code words. You didn't burn a specific ongoing classified program. And for them, I mean, I'm not in their OODA loop, but certainly it's a catch-22 for them where if they want to redact and they propose a redaction, they're like, hey, Dave, you can't say these sentences. You can rewrite it and resubmit. We can't necessarily tell you what agency said to redact it, but you're not allowed to say this. They would be basically self-certifying there's a there. So in my opinion, probably the policy is like, if it has to deal with the subject, we're not saying anything. We're not proposing any redactions. As long as he's not burning a conventional program, we kind of have to allow him to exercise his First Amendment rights. And so I think it's like a catch-22 for that office is kind of the short of the long answer.
So this is essentially one of the very early ones, 1933.
Mm-hmm.
How many crash retrieval incidents have there been?
It is double digit. The specific numbers I do know, however, I can't discuss that. And I know it sounds like, oh, I'm being coy or whatever, but this show, any other interviews I do, right? Foreign intelligence services are watching, and it's like, I'm not here to help Russia and China calibrate their intelligence collection. Like, oh, Dave said it's this number. We missed a couple. Shit. Let's put it out for the KGB, SVR, and GRU are now going to hit the streets to try to figure out which ones they missed. So I'm here to protect national security, and I'm just trying to put all the general topics out there for public conversation to hold our government accountable, really. So, because I'm here as a fact witness, because we have a constitutional oversight issue, because this program has not been reported to Congress in the appropriate way, and I can get into a senator I talked to that has died recently, so I can, explain to you why I'm so sure. Besides what I read, which we can get into what intel reports I read, I did get some stuff cleared. So during my investigation, I'm like, you know what? I need to talk to somebody at the highest levels, right? So, and this will give you an idea of the kind of people we talk to. And this is the only one I'm going to talk about using their name because they died 2 years ago. So in spring 2021, I actually flew with a couple colleagues of mine to Las Vegas. And I met with Senator Harry Reid about 9 months before he died. And of course, he's a private citizen now. And I wanted to brief him on the topic, and I wanted to get his kind of thought leadership on it because, he was a Gang of Eight member, right? Which is the top most cleared senators and congressmen. He was the majority leader, for God's sakes, of the Senate. And I knew, he helped sponsor the OSAP program that I mentioned, and where they looked at Skinwalker Ranch and some other things. And I wanted to understand, like, what does Harry Reid actually know? Like, why did he give $21 million to DIA and Bigelow Aerospace for this? So I'm sitting there in Harry Reid's living room, right next to him with some other witnesses that were there with me. And he straight up says, he's like, yeah, I knew we had UFO material. I was denied access for decades. I tried to get access. And then he explained some of his efforts during OSAP. And I was like, holy shit, did the former majority leader just say, did he just confirm this to me as well? I was already talking to these amazing high-level people, but I have Harry Reid literally saying, yes, we have material, and, he knew it was non-human.
Did Harry have personal experience with this?
I don't know if he's had any personal stuff in his personal life.
I mean, did he see it?
He said, in terms of seeing the material himself, he said he was denied access for years, decades was his term, and he actually told me, on behalf of me, he had like a weekly call with President Joe Biden at the time, and he straight up said to me he was going to talk to President Biden about this issue, literally. And then what he was telling me about OSAP, I was like, holy shit, I have like 20 other people that told me this, dude. So the real history, what fucking OSAP was, because I think there's a lot of people out there that think they were looking at ghosts, Skinwalker Ranch. Yes, they went to the ranch as a secondary and tertiary objective. But the real reason, so like there's a document that came out a couple years ago through FOIA from the Defense Intelligence Agency. There was this special access program request that Harry Reid, you might have seen this, I think like George Knapp and company have reported on this, that he sent to the Deputy Secretary of Defense, William Lynn. And it was asking for one of the most serious SAPs you can ask for, what they call a bigoted, waived special access program. So waived means it's limited congressional reporting. That is a class of special access programs. And bigoted means it's like by name. And it was like, you could read the FOIA document. It was like, Harry Reid, James Inhofe, Lou Elizondo, etc. And I'm like, why are you asking for the most serious SAP to be created for a program that ostensibly is looking at Skinwalker Ranch and stuff? And it doesn't make any sense. So what really happened there, and Harry Reid, God bless his soul, made this disclosure a couple weeks after we met in the New Yorker, and you can look this up. I think it was like a May 2021 New Yorker story where he says, I knew for decades, and he made this disclosure, not me, so I'm going to say the name of the contractor. Harry Reid said this. We knew that Lockheed Martin had this material for decades. I tried to get access, and I was denied. And specifically with the Lockheed Martin stuff, he was talking about during the OSAP program. And for the people who are on this program, I submitted this shit to the officer, got this cleared, so don't freak out, but I'm telling the truth here. So Lockheed Martin wanted to divest itself from this material at a specific facility that's known to me, that I provided to the Inspector General, like street address, all that shit, right? And the idea was if they made a catcher's mitt, a security catcher's mitt for this shit, most serious SAP possible, the contractor and the other government customer, which was the Central Intelligence Agency, for that specific Lockheed material. And it was shit that they recovered from like the 50s and stuff. And it was like bits and pieces of like hall structure, shit like that. And so they were going to tech transfer it. And the $21 or $22 million was actually for Bigelow Aerospace to build out, facilities in Las Vegas and material analysis equipment. And I saw the staff meeting slides. I saw the paperwork. Like there's a paperwork trail I've seen on this shit. And I talked to the people involved in this program.
The Joe Rogan Experience.
But pumas are, an established animal. To have like some cryptozoological creature like Bigfoot that's undetected. But it's fun.
It's fun.
I want to believe.
Yeah.
But I don't really.
Well, that's like in the ocean. Like they find some big fish, or some big, like extra, like some, and you're like, I don't know, dude, we never knew it was down there.
There's two.
Well, don't they think aliens could live in the ocean? So, I mean,
yes.
That's how much.
That was Jeremy Corbs talking about that the other day. That they, it's hard to say like what kind of information he's getting, how accurate it is. But they're basically saying, think about the movie Abyss, where the aliens lived underwater. He was like, that's probably what's going on.
Yeah.
That there's some sort of alien base underwater or some meeting place, or that's where they hide. That's where they go to be undetected.
Do you think you're going to see it in your lifetime?
Bigfoot or aliens?
Aliens. Like, where it's like, oh, like we have to like talk to them now. We have to like interact with them.
There's a video that is impossible to ignore. There's some things that are impossible to ignore. And then there's eyewitness testimonies of people who are rock solid, totally dependable, like fighter pilots who have seen some things. Like the best examples, this guy, Commander David Fravor, who was off the coast of San Diego in 2004. And this is corroborated by multiple points of data. They had this this tracking system that tracks things above Earth's atmosphere, and they found this thing went from above 60,000 feet above sea level to 50 feet above sea level in less than a second. They have no idea how it's doing this. They have no idea. There's no method of propulsion that's visible. They followed this thing. They locked onto it. It blocked their radar. It blocked their tracking systems, rather. And then it jetted off at an impossible rate of speed. And then the Nimitz relocated this thing at their cat point. The cat point is where the fighter pilots, when they're doing this test, they're doing this exercise, they were supposed to meet at this very specific point. And that's where this thing had gone. Like this thing had read their manifest and knew, like, or read their plans and knew where they were going.
What's wild?
That is way more compelling to me than Bigfoot. The Bigfoot thing is just fun, but the alien thing is fun and likely. There's something going on. And so I go back and forth. Sometimes I think maybe it's some sort of government drone that's like so sophisticated and it's totally top secret. And if we ever go to war with China, that's when they're going to break it out. And then sometimes I think what they are is something that's monitoring us and making sure we don't blow ourselves up, making sure that we make this journey from territorial apes with thermonuclear weapons into some sort of an advanced intergalactic society, and that there's a very crucial moment where the instincts of these tribal people, which is all of us, all human beings, are these tribal territorial people, where you have to keep them from sabotaging any possible future progress by blowing themselves up, by killing each other, by
what if we told them and then when you say that they go, yeah, that was it. Is that easy? Like, not that easy, but like you just go, is that it? And you go,
yeah,
that's about it.
We're trying to keep you guys from blowing yourselves up. This is like, but maybe that's like the natural thing that you see. Like when civilizations advance, like there's a very precarious moment where like they have the capability of blowing themselves up, but the reason and the logic to not do it, but they also have these instincts to control resources and take over territories. They still have those instincts, but they have to bypass that. They have to figure out how to, and so that's when aliens start circling and just keeping an eye on us.
Yeah.
That's the primary.
I mean, that's what you hope, right? Instead of like them attacking us.
Yes.
Because then
I think if they were going to attack us, they would have already done it. Like if they really could do all those things, they could probably take out our power grid pretty easy. Apparently, the stories are that they're able to shut down nuclear launches and nuclear facilities, and that they do that, and they hover over military bases, and that they just shut everything down just to let you know, hey, bitch, I can
that's
just
wild.
flip that switch. So
yeah, crazy.
The Joe Rogan Experience.
But anyway, that's where we were heading this one day. So we all packed up. We're in Beatty, Nevada, which is the Burrow Inn. I can tell you that's where we always hold up at. And we take off from there every morning to go do the AM and the PM push. That's what you call it when the war is on. You call it the push. So we had one in the morning called AM push, one in the afternoon PM push. So we were all heading up for the AM push in a convoy. There's 3 vehicles, probably about 3 to 4 people per vehicle. I'm in the lead vehicle with the ranking guy. He's driving, and I'm right behind him. And then there's another gentleman in the passenger seat across from the driver, and then there's a young lady next to me. And we're all going up. And the ranking guy had been there the week before, and he had seen the craft fly by, because that one's out there on the internet. You can pull down the video. There's a report that goes along with it. That
There's
shows,
a video that we could,
yeah.
what would he search?
Search for, let me think, Nellis Test Range UFO 1994.
Dun, dun, dun. Who
So-
filmed this?
This was filmed by the operators on the range because we're putting these pilots in a risky situation by playing war with them, but we're training them. So if there is any kind of a mishap or a pilot or plane goes down, everything needs to be recorded. So they
This
have
is it right here?
Yes. So this is being taken. This video is being taken by one of these cameras that's up on the range, and along the bottom you see that this is also trying to lock on to the craft, so it can, follow it as it goes in and out. Because this is the kind of way that you want to track if there's a craft that is having problems. And,
This is moving very erratically.
Right. So this is what the ranking guy saw.
Can I pause a second? This tracking, is this manual or is this like some
This
sort of an automated system?
It's an automated system.
So the automated system is a hard time.
Locking on.
Locking on.
Yeah, if it locks on, you'll see a big spike, and that means that it finally locks on. Right now it's trying to, but something is stopping it from locking on, and they think it was the craft.
It's moving like crazy, side to side, all over.
There's actually a recording that goes with it where you hear the guys going, "Hey, does anybody know what this is? What's going on here?"
Can we hear that? Okay, the sound is terrible.
Yeah.
They need better mics.
Honestly,
Do we
it
have
sounds when
podcast
you're
mics?
working. But
I'm
anyway,
sure. But he's saying, what is that? I don't know. We're having a hard time locking on to it.
Right. This is the video operator. So the following week after this happens, this video is taken. The ranking guy who had been there the week before and saw this thing flying, he takes us in this. When you go on the range through this one gate here, it goes up a little ways, and then there's a cantonment area. It's got a very small place where you can change your tires, get gas, minor maintenance to get your butt home if you have a car that's busted. And then in the back of that cantonment area, there's two huts that look like campers, really, glorified campers. So the video operators are in the one that's off to the northeast of the cantonment, and in the very corner of it. And the ranking guy just says, we all have to go in here. We're going to go talk to the video operators. We have to do this. And this was because the week prior, everybody came back to garrison or back to our unit, and they had seen this thing, and they were all talking about this UFO. So we go in there, and there's the video operator. He has us all write our names down, whether we were there and saw it the first week or not. Then he makes us all sit down and watch that video. And he says, do you know what this is? And we're like, no. And then he just said, okay, thank you. And then we, after everybody that was there saw it and wrote their name down, we were allowed to leave. And that was all that was required. And so I was like, well, what was that all about? But then as I'm exiting, this lady that had been sitting against the wall on the far part of this little hut that we were in, and she grabs my arm and she just says, there's somebody on the range, don't talk to him. And she was really, really freaked out. And I'm like, thanks, strange, freaky lady. Got it. And I'm like, whatever. So we all hop out, we get in the vehicles, and then start taking off towards Quartz Mountain, because right at that cantonment area, there's a hard right. There's a hard right that goes off to Quartz Mountain. And about half a mile to a mile down that road, it's all dirt road up, by the way, there's this guy. It looks like he's wearing a uniform like we are. He got battle dress uniform on. So he sees us, and he starts to look like he's running, and he's got this really weird run, like his arms are kind of flailing behind him. It's like he was running against the hurricane wind, and it was like he was going to fall over at any time. And I was like, yeah, it's a bit windy today, but it ain't that bad. So it looked really strange, and then I began to notice his skin tone looked like he might be hypothermic. And I'm thinking, oh, crap, this dude's been out here. It's freaking freezing out here, because it was a very cold day, and the wind was blowing. It was, those cold days where it didn't matter how many layers you had on. And so as we're getting closer, I'm talking to the ranking guy, hey, we need to slow down. So anyway, I'm thinking this guy's probably in big trouble. I need to pull off my jacket. I need to give him something to get warm real quick. So I'm starting to do that, and we're approaching, and by the time I get my jacket most of the way off, he's right there at the corner of the front of the car. And
So it looks pale? Is that what
he
you
looked like an albino with a very bluish kind of undertone. If you could imagine,
So you're assuming you're immediately associating that with he's freezing.
because that's all I could equate it to.
Right.
And then as I'm starting to open my door to try to administer aid to this guy, the dude in the front passenger seat screams he's got no ears, and I thought that was pretty rude. Because I was like, the guy's in trouble.
Does he have
and he's got BDUs that look absolutely clean, pristine. And when you're uprange, you do not wear your cleanest uniform. You're in a dirty environment. You wear your scuffed up boots. You don't take them with you.
So he's got a clean battle dress uniform.
Everything.
United States military.
It looks very out of place when I finally do it. But anyway, I step out onto the roadway, and this guy screams that he's got no ears. And I just thinking it's really rude. And then I close the door, and I look up, and he's got no freaking ears. And his eyes are twice as big. And I just am like, yeah, what the hell did I just walk into? This guy's not from around
How
here.
far away from him are you?
Probably from me to
Just a few.
yeah, just talking distance.
Okay.
And I'm starting to freak out. But then he starts to talk to me, and it's not my language, but it's coming to the understanding is like coming into my mind about every word he's saying.
So he's saying words.
He's saying words, but it doesn't sound like anything I've heard before.
But you're
understanding. So I know there's a telepathic thing going on here, and it calms me down at the same time because I'm having to respond to him. And he's like, hello, I'm having trouble with my craft. I need some repair material. Do you know where I could find some tritium? And this is what he's talking to me about. And I'm like, you mean titanium? Because I didn't know anything about tritium at the time. But titanium, he's like, no, it's not it. And I'm like, well, at this point in my career, I had just left the program, so I knew where Dreamland was, and I pointed to the mountain range because you can see for days in the desert. But I pointed towards the mountain range, and I said, Dreamland's just over there. And this wave of emotion hit me like disgust, like I am not going to talk to those barbarians and murderers.
Wow, so he was saying that to you, his reaction to going to the military base was,
exactly.
I was not
he like it. He said, I am not going to talk to those people. And then I was like, well, shoot.
And it was
he literally, that was what he called them, yes. And mentally, that's what it was. But the emotion.
Tritium, a real thing?
Well, that's what I've had friends. There's analysts also that were on the top secret network that were trying to help me understand what material.
We were throwing everything at him. Is it this? Is it this? And he's
and then
like,
finally,
no.
that's when they hit tritium. I was like, that's what it was. That's what he said.
And what is tritium?
It's a type of, can he bring it up on the...
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, because it should pop up on Wikipedia pretty quick. But it has some properties that probably would work.
But are you saying tritium?
Yeah, tritium is, that's the stuff that in loom. Like in your watch, when your watch glows, that's they make those where they're basically like radioactive isotopes that stay lit. So like if you get like a Marathon watch, Marathon makes military watches, and it doesn't need like this watch. You need the light, and the light charges the loom, and then when it's dark out, you could read the hands for like a few hours.
It's the things to put on the end of the guns, right?
Exactly. They still a lot like SIG has them on
look
their
up
guns.
tritium also. Put an
Tritium
end in
is
there.
just a lot. It's
I did that. That's not giving me much.
so tritium, chunky glow in the dark glitter. What is that?
These are game websites.
Oh, I see.
I don't know.
Okay, so it's tritium, then I may be mispronouncing
But
it.
tritium that's that radioactive isotope.
Mm-hmm.
That's the stuff that emits light.
Yep.
So it emits a weak form of radiation.
Yes.
A rare radioactive isotope of hydrogen with a half-life of 12.3 years.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So this is asking me for.
So he's asking you for that stuff? Tritium?
Yep. And I'm like, I don't know where to get.
Oh, look at that. It's used in boosted fission weapons and thermonuclear weapons. Oh, great.
That sounds pretty sure, right?
I wonder what the fuck it's doing on your wrist. This
is what the best image that we have of what he could have looked like.
Oh, boy. Can you send that to Jamie?
Yeah, I don't know Jamie's number, but we'll find a way to.
Is that an iPhone or anything?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that an iPhone?
If I had my phone, I would, but it's out there, I think.
Yeah, airdrop it to Jamie. Do you know how to do that?
There was
How
that
dare you
one.
not know how to do
Oh,
that?
and there's a
Your guy
three-dimensional.
works with UFOs. You better know how to do that.
Well, the three-dimensional image of the craft as well that is really spot on from what I saw that day.
Yeah.
Because not only did I see this guy running towards us and talking to him, but off the shoulder on the north side of the roadway, that's where the craft was just resting on the desert floor. And I got a really good look at it at that point. And this guy did a 3D rendering of the description, and it's spot on as I've ever seen. It's almost perfect.
So he asks you for tritium. You tell him this is what it looked like.
This is what it looked like. Pretty close to it.
Yo.
The nose was a little bit rounder on the end, but that was a really good rendition. His eyes almost came out to here on the temple.
Wow. And that would freak me out.
It freaked me out. I mean, honestly, I'm not a guy to get freaked out, but that really put that, like you just saw an alligator pop up out of the water kind of thing.
Right. So when you tell him go to Dreamland, it says, I'm not going to go where those murderers and barbarians are. And then what happens?
And he said, no. So I was like, well, where else can I possibly point him to? Because I'm like, I don't know any metallurgists or whatever. So I'm thinking to myself, and I relate to him. I said, well, I'm taking college classes down in the city of Vegas, Las Vegas, at the community college. But I have a geophysical professor that I'm taking a class from. Maybe he has a metallurgist friend, and he's like.
So you're thinking at this time though it's a metal.
I am, yes.
Right, because you're thinking it's some kind of like anium, some type of.
Right. And there's also when
This is the 3D image of what the craft looks like?
That is almost as spot on as I've ever seen. That is about it right there. That's almost exactly what I saw resting on the door.
And so you're trying to find different people that you can connect this being to.
Yeah.
What is it saying to you while you're...
He thought that was a good idea, I think, or he was like, I mean, made him, he had that kind of, and he wanted to take action, so he doesn't really even say goodbye. He just kind of turns and off he goes back to his craft. And I'm thinking, well, okay. And I get back in the car, and sometime during that conversation with this entity, I remembered looking over at my friends in the car, and they had the weirdest look on their face, like they were all zonked out, totally zombied, like they couldn't even... They were just drooling on themselves.
Were this because they were flabbergasted, or was it because something was going on?
Well, I figured out that maybe it was done by this entity because none of them seemed to even remember the incident. Only a few people seems to remember that we stopped, that we had talked to somebody on the roadway, but it was mainly the people that were in the back of the convoy.
So they did get up close like you did?
Right, like we did. The people
so how
that were
far
right
away
there,
would they be?
They'd probably be a good 2 car lengths behind us.
That's still enough to detect whether or not someone looks blue, though, right?
Correct. And not only what they saw, but you know me, I'm kind of wide and I'm big. I was very muscular back then.
And you're standing...
I had a difficult time because this guy stood about a good half foot shorter than me. And so they probably could see his arms from time to time, maybe catch a glimpse of his face or something. So they probably didn't get a very good view because if you're looking at me, I'm standing right next to my door. Mm-hmm. And they're behind me kind of almost obfuscated by just the angle that they're looking at him. So all the windows are tinted in those vehicles.
Mm-hmm.
The Joe Rogan Experience.
Have you ever seen anything?
I saw something once, and it was right after 9/11. And it was weird because I'd seen this fireball kind of go through the sky like a day or two earlier. This was all during the no-fly period of time, right after 9/11. But what I saw that was, I still don't know what the fuck it was, I was driving my girlfriend from Akron she went to school at the time, she was going to Oberlin, this really liberal school out in the middle of nowhere in Ohio, and I was driving out there, and it's on the way towards the FAA headquarters is like in Lorain or Elyria, Ohio. That's where they monitor all the flights for North America or for the United States. And anyway, I was driving out there and I saw this thing hovering over a house, and it was I took note because like no fly zone. It was like
right,
and it looked like a helicopter or something, like because there was a light coming down, but no other lights. And but it was like only 100 feet above this house in the middle of nowhere, right along the same stretch of road where I'd seen this fireball a couple days earlier. And I was driving a stick shift Ford Escort, and I put it in neutral and rolled down the windows as I got closer, and there was like no sound coming from this thing. And my girlfriend had like one of those Nextel phones, the early cell phone, and she turned it on because like you should call someone, like call the police or something. This is insane. And the minute like the screen turned on, this thing just like took off. It didn't go like thousands of miles an hour, but it went really, really fast. It made no sound. It just was like, whoop. That's the only thing I've ever seen. But I still don't know what the fuck it was.
Wow.
But you see weird shit like in Ohio because there's Wright-Patterson Air Force Base there.
Yeah.
One time I was driving, we were on tour. I was driving us and right like for the tree lines on the side of the road, and right I'm just driving and a Harrier just like pops up, like those planes that can kind of just popped up like right maybe 100 yards from the road. But yeah, that's what they apparently keep the alien corpses,
Yeah. So they supposedly flew the wreckage from Roswell, New Mexico to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base.
It's a good place to keep it because I'm from Ohio and I've never actually been into Dayton, Ohio. So just the outside of Dayton.
If you still have that there, that's really rude. You should let people see that.
Yeah.
If you guys really did find a fucking crashed UFO, how about a little heads up? It's rude. It's rude that they've had it for so long, and we've just been people go to their grave just guessing.
They say that like the recovered, apparently the recovered materials and stuff, they, in order to not have to turn it over to the public, they keep just giving it to private defense contractors.
Really?
That's who holds the material. That's what.
Well, I would imagine if I was the government and I had a crashed UFO. That's why I bring it to the private defense contractors. They're already good at keeping secrets. They already know how to make your weapons, and they know how to do stuff that you don't know how to do. They're doing it for you. Like, it's not like the fucking government themselves makes the missiles. They hire people to make the missiles.
There's this massive building in Akron called the Air Dock. It was built in the late 20s, so they could build blimps because they used to build all the blimps in Akron.
It's incredible. Looks like Star Wars.
I mean, it's fucking nuts.
Because it's right in the middle of a neighborhood.
It rains.
Whoa.
It has its own atmosphere. It rains inside there.
Whoa.
Yeah. It's the most ominous looking structure. It's so fucking long and big. It's like,
holy shit.
Yeah.
That's so big.
And it's like right, it's like you can see it from like the whole south side of the city. But now they have like this crazy perimeter around it. It's Lockheed Martin, I think, controls it. I'm like, what the fuck are they building in there? But you can't get close to it. You can't get close at all.
What they're building there is probably minor league stuff. The stuff they built in the middle of nowhere,
That's
in the
what I'm saying.
desert, carved into the mountain. That's the scary shit.
That's what I'm saying.
I think most of what people are seeing is a government aircraft,
Oh, for
either
sure.
a drone or something.
That's why they won't acknowledge the hypersonic missile. Like they just announced that they're like discontinuing research on the hypersonic missile when clearly they must have the it must be fully operational.
Yeah, I would imagine they would tell us. Like, they don't have to.
Yeah,
That's
no.
one of the most incredible things about the way the government works.
Yeah.
Is that the amount of money that they get. That was the argument for the reason why this hasn't been disclosed. Like, the government doesn't want to come out and say,
Well,
it was the money allocation. Like, you had to have lied to Congress about where the money was going.
Well, someone was saying like it's like the opposite of brinkmanship. Like there's weapons that exist that if other countries knew they existed, would just be such a fucking threat that it would cause a war. Just the idea that someone had something like that no other country had, that you could wield that kind of weapon. So there's
Right.
like these weapons that get invented that have to remain top secret because it would just upend the whole fucking power structure.